All right, welcome to Equal Time Soccer. I'm Matt Pobrodsky alongside Isa, our new St. Thomas beat reporter. She is crushing it at just up the street from St. Thomas, as St. Thomas announcers are wont to say in the capital city. So we are, and we'll get into that later on with Audrey, who's a St. Pauli. So head coach Sheila McGill. Sheila, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, I'm going to let Isa kick things off.
Okay, so you guys have had a really strong start to the season. Talk about your first impressions now that you're a little bit deeper into the season.
Yeah, I mean, really, one of the things we wanted to build on from last year was consistency, and I think that that's something that we really focused on, especially the defensive mindset, that it's not just 4 defenders that are defending, it's an entire unit that defends. So for us, really, that was one big piece that we came forward, and our returners from last year did such an amazing job of working hard through it, especially all spring. They really asked questions. They really tried to learn exactly how to play the system so that when the questions were arising this season, they were able to help the next person. And so because of that, we've really been defensively as a unit able to tuck in and be present together, which then allows us to explode out better as well.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about sort of the growth right there, but I think for people who maybe weren't super familiar with St. Thomas beforehand, or maybe didn't, well, I mean, no one has seen this kind of jump before where you go from D3 to D1. Right. I think last year, if you look at statistically or record or whatever, there's, of the 300 D1 teams in the country, maybe you all were in that lower third. And I think already this year, you've basically jumped a whole tranche, into sort of that middle class of college teams, which I don't think people probably fully appreciate, how kooky that is to do that in 1 year. Talk about just that jump from sort of year 1 to year 2 of sort of that big jump in one single year from year 1 to 2.
Yeah, I think that our biggest thing as well is having been part of a successful program before we even became Division I. The soccer was good soccer. And so now we get to add better players into that soccer and learning that system. So a lot of times with the youth of, your team in a new transition where you had last year, we had 12 freshmen. And this year we have 22 players that are freshmen or sophomores. I mean, it's amazing when you look at the rate of the players that are coming up, the fact that they're learning as quickly as they are. So for us, that was a really big step. We wanted the learning to be happening last year. And that's why we didn't sit in just a defensive mindset or a defensive shell. We wanted to try and play. We wanted them to have that experience so that when they come out, whether it's in the spring or whether it's this fall again, they were ready to play, to really play, not to reteach them a new system now that they can go forward. So I think that was a big piece for us, was really trying to get players who, one, have the personality that want to work with us and that want to be part of something bigger than themselves. To me, that's huge. Team chemistry is an enormous part of our team. And so that was one big piece. We wanted players who wanted to come in to work for this and to know that this is building and this is going to build quickly if we do it well. And so that was the really exciting part, is everybody's really bought in and they're asking questions and they're doing what they need to do. And we've had a really great response from the team. And because of it, all of a sudden it's translating into really big steps.
Isa, you got this one?
Yeah. So what are some pieces of traveling from D3 to D1 that have been a surprise for you?
To be honest, the biggest surprise and frustration is paperwork. There's so much more paperwork for everything you have to do. You can't just call a kid and be like, hey, come and visit. Instead, you're like, okay, you want to visit? I want you to visit. But now you have to fill out this, and this, and I have to fill out all this stuff. And if we do it at the same time, then we might be able to get you in campus in time. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic from that side of it. It's just the paperwork piece of it, just making sure that we have everything doing it the right way. And I think that that's something St. Thomas has done an excellent job of, as really giving us the information so that we are doing it the right way. And I think that that's been, could be a huge challenge when it's a big jump from 3 to 1 like that. Most of us as coaches that had been part of obviously the D3 programs before had never done any of that. So I think that that's been really challenging, but that's where having great assistant coaches as well, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to focus on coaching. You can help with that, please. And they've been awesome. They've been great. They've been like, got it. I got it. Perfect.
And you talked a little bit about institutional support there. A little birdie did tell me that maybe scholarship support was increased from year 1 to year 2. I don't know. Is that
No, I mean, we knew what we were going to have regardless. So no, that hasn't changed for us whatsoever.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's because I know that such a huge build out for the university in general is like going, you sort of spoke to it, but then on a scale of 25 sports of just the infrastructure, and you have a whole development team, and then you have a whole whatever. So I mean, that's been going on for years because there was sort of anticipation for it, but that build out must be nuts of just like.
But we just had our first full athletic department meeting that used to be able to be in one small classroom. And now we filled like an entire auditorium space. Like, it was crazy the amount of people that they have put into support roles and into helping us through all of this stuff. It's really helping, obviously, on all dynamics, from a marketing to budgeting to facilities to, I mean, just you name it. And it's all been just ramped up so quickly that everyone's kind of learning as we go. So we go to them and they're like, okay, what are we going to do? You want to do this? Okay, let's see if we can figure it out. We'll do it, and so it's just been really interesting from that side of it to see the learning process happening on both sides of it. And we always joke saying that we're building the airplane as we're flying it, but it's great. It's been really fun to see the amount of support that St. Thomas has been able to give us. Our admins have been really supportive and doing such a great job. So from that side of it, we've been really happy.
And you spoke earlier about just how incredibly young this team is. I think one way you phrased it, or maybe I looked at the roster, it's, 4 players who aren't freshmen or sophomores, or, that's probably roughly correct.
So it's actually, let me see here, 8. So it's a total of 8, but only 4 are from our original D3 team. Yeah.
Right. And so those veterans, those ones who have carried over, the ones who have been in the program, and then also just the few upperclassmen you do have, talk about sort of what they've brought to the team as you bring in these huge tranches of recruits of like 10, 11, 12, however many like players at once. Talk about sort of what that upperclassman leadership has provided.
Yeah, well, and I think that the role models that have been kind of coming through our system over the last several years really set us up for success, because the team chemistry, like I said, has been such a huge focus for us. And those freshmen have always had amazing seniors that have helped them and treated them as teammates and coached them and were helpful in good ways, not coached them in negative ways. And so all of that stuff has been stuff that's been really fantastic to see. So from that side of it, our seniors last year had amazing seniors for them, and so they know what it feels like to have great leadership. So that's what this group is doing as well. So you look at some of our captains like Jasmine Gates, Audrey Vidmar, Shannon McWilliams, and then we have Tess Phillips and Alex Balfour coming in. And those are experienced players. They've been to NCAA tournaments. They've been in big moment games where they have to have composure, and they can help us stay calm. They can help us problem solve on the field. They can help us do the things that, they're like, okay, calm down, or maybe it's little things like as someone gets fired up about something like, yeah, we don't do that. Just little things that the way we treat each other, the way we do stuff, it's ingrained within the team, and they're helping create that in the younger classes as well.
Right.
That's amazing. Okay, but there's something that's been like really like really like attracted by the way that you like substitute and stuff. So like I just really want to talk about it. Like it's like super unique to like St. Thomas, and like the amount of minutes overall for like your bench isn't that out of line with what other programs might do.
It is. It is.
Like, yeah, like you really stagger out those subs, so it's almost always like there's almost always change. Like there's always like fresh legs or like people who've already played a couple of minutes, et cetera, et cetera. And like, I've heard that it's been your style for a while. Like, talk about how that became your second strategy.
Well, there's a couple of reasons why we do what we do. So one of the things in particular, we expect them to defend their tails off. I mean, we ask them to run hard. And when it comes down to that, we know that we're asking for more than most people can give. And so because of it, you can give it for a certain amount of time and then let somebody else do it. And that's where they can really encourage each other. But on top of that too, I think that dealing with adversity, let's say you have a back line that you only play 4 players. If someone gets hurt, that back line is out of whack. And so you need to have 6, 7 players maybe that you can rotate in there at any time. And so the same thing with, your forward lines or your midfield line. If somebody gets out for some reason, whether they're sick or whatever the reason might be, you need to be able to have consistency with play and know how your teammates play off of each other. That's one piece of it. The other piece of it is that as a coach, these girls work hard. They work really hard, and they have a lot of talent. And we're trying to get players in because they deserve to be there. And I think that that's a really one of our biggest challenges that we have is that we don't get to play everybody. You know, I mean, I know that that's not what most people do, but at the same time, in my head, we have great players that they bring in something new and they're able to step on the field and they're able to all of a sudden score a goal the minute they step on the field. Now, does that mean that they wouldn't have been a great starter? Sure, they would have been a great starter. But at the same time, we want strength all game long, not just in moments. And so we want to put the best combinations together. And so we rearrange all the time where we're like, hey, these two are playing really well off of each other, or they're doing this really well off of each other, or we just need a little bit of extra speed down that line today. So let's see if we can rearrange it this way. So for us, we've been getting probably anywhere between 20 to 21 players in a game. It's a lot. It's a lot. But at the same time, we're also not exhausting our players, which we had to do a little bit more last year. We didn't have quite as much depth in our bench. So this year we can give them that experience. And if we have, like I said, 22 players that are freshmen or sophomores. If we can get them game time experience, it's only going to improve us in the long run. And so that's one piece that why we really do what we do as well.
And I have to imagine on the transfer side, so, you know, Audrey Vidmar, we'll have her on later. You know, she started her career out at Drake. You have a couple other transfers on there. I think, you know, you and I spoke earlier this fall, and you were really clear that even in your D3 era, you know, you never sort of looked at someone coming in like a former D1, a former D2, and sort of let them have any special kind of treatment. It was sort of always, let's see what you do in our program. Let's see what you do on the field, all that kind of thing. But I have to imagine that last year, maybe even before that, and especially now this year, there's a decent amount of transfer players who are at least maybe reaching out to you, or they're throwing their name in the portal. So obviously there's a lot of you reviewing, you know, scrubbing and looking at players in the portal yourself, but talk a little bit about sort of which players have been reaching out, what kind of players have been reaching out to you, how you've developed sort of a compass for how to deal with that transfer process.
Yeah. So to be honest, this was a little bit, I mean, St. Thomas has always had transfers, so that's nothing new. But at the same time, in November of last year, we had 16 players reach out in like a 2-week span. And it was a little bit like, I don't know if I want to do that. You know, like we're building things here. And that's what we want to do is we want to build. So from that side of it, I was like, we need to go through this with a little bit more of a fine-tooth comb. So the things that we're looking for is players who want to come in and be part of a team, who want to come in. Sometimes we get those transfer calls or those transfer emails and they're like, I didn't get along with my coach. They thought I was a defender. I'm a forward, you know, and we're like, yeah, that's probably not the right fit for what we're looking for, you know? So it comes down to personality and attitude because we always kind of look at that as well. But we also are willing to give second chances. You know, I mean, if you know, we've had situations where people come in and we talk just very candidly about like our rules, how we treat each other and give people that opportunity. So I think that from that side of it too, it's been really fun to see that the transfer right now, the ones that are more successful are people who know our program and want to be a part of it.
Right.
Versus you're a new program. I wasn't being successful at my old school and now I want to come in and just think they're going to rule the house here, you know? And that's just not the way it works. We work hard and we work hard for what we do and we want everybody to do the same when they get here. And so St. Thomas, when we were a D3 school, was very strong in the sense that we had D1 and D2 players already on our team, whether they transferred in or they chose not to go D1 or D2, even though they had those offers. So we've been talking with D1 and D2 transfers for a long time. So there's not a whole lot of newness in that, just the number is new. And so that's the side of it as well that we looked at and we got to know those players a little bit more, wanted to see why they're transferring versus, you know, what their reasoning meant something to us. And so I think that was a big piece as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've talked about how you're handling like players who are reaching out to you, I actually am really curious about like the shape of the roster moving forward. Like, obviously you guys have had like a ton of recruits each of the last like 2 years and like huge classes out of the gate to like sort of set this foundation. How does that like levelize over time? Like you only have like 4 upperclassmen, and so not a lot of players like are leaving theoretically.
Right. So I think that it will always be a challenge. I think that it always comes down to, you know, it's still a Division I program. We still have to have the best players on the team. And I think that that's the most important dynamic that we have. But at the same time, in the beginning, we were really recruiting larger classes because we needed depth. We needed depth within our program. But for us in particular, now we don't need as much depth depth as much as we need key players. So I think that that's the piece that we're looking for now. So they don't need to be in very large classes. They can be smaller classes that are very specific to what we're looking for. And so that's where I think it'll start, like with our 24 class and our 25 class. They don't need to be large roster numbers. They just need to be quality players that we need. So I think that from that side of it, that's where it'll start to narrow itself down as well.
All right, Coach, really appreciate you coming in. If folks have not been following the Tommies yet, follow them. They play really sort of fun attacking soccer, and just about to start Summit League play, which is Summit League can be brutal. It can be bruising. There's a lot of Minnesotans in the Summit League. It is drowning in Minnesotans, so you are bound to find someone you like. Coach McGill, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
And now, moving on to the stars on the field, we have midfielder, just bangers all day from this player. Midfielder Camryn Rintoul. Camryn, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hello.
So, Camryn, we're just jumping right in. We got to ask you about, you made, I believe, SportsCenter top 10. I'm sorry we shared on equal time. SportsCenter top 10 is like impossible to get video of. They lock it down. It's absurd. It's not online anywhere. It's crazy town. But you made SportsCenter top 10. It is not your only like crazy awesome like goal from distance this year. Is that always been sort of part of your game, or are those ones where this year you just sort of say, hey, let's give it a shot, let's see what the hell happens?
Yeah, no, I think I've scored more goals like this season than I have probably like all of high school. Not really a goal scoring player, but it just kind of happened this year, so I'm going with it.
Yeah, you're kind of like a physical, like in some instances you're holding back there, you're physical like holding six, and you're just sort of like breaking up play and like being a defensive stalwart. So that's crazy that you haven't had goals like that. That's wild. I know. Yeah. Well, Issa might have some vibes with you. She's also a holding mid. You all are gonna vibe.
Genuinely, like, you are such an interesting player to watch, because like I really enjoy like the stuff like this, like just the way that you carry yourself on the field. It's been like such a joy watching you, because like I would say that I like to play the way you do. So like it's kind of like fun just like watching someone who would do the same things I do, or just, like the similarities. And but there are still plenty of fans maybe like learning about the program and like your journey to D1. For them and for us, how would you describe like your team's style of play?
I think our team style play is super possession based. Like, we're looking to find feet as much as we can, and it gets challenging sometimes, like playing against tough opponents. But like that's always what we try to come back to, is like finding feet. And like I know like when I can get the ball a lot, it like helps switch the field and our other midfielders. So it kind of like we kind of break down when we can't find our midfield. So I'd say that's the main thing we try to do, is look to find feet and move up the field. And something we're focusing on moving forward is like, I mean, today's theme of practice was like driving towards goal. So hopefully that's something we can add to our game to kind of light up our attack a bit.
Well, and you as a holding midfielder really sort of have to help set the tone for that possession-based stuff. Yeah. It's like if the team wants to play to feet, a lot of the times you have to be the first person to provide the feet. Talk about sort of how that has been as you sort of move into this, it's a high level of play when you're playing D1 soccer, like this is legit, like teams can play. Talk about sort of how that has been for you to feel like I have to be that first connection point of like, I need to face, like I need to give a good check back. What's that been like for you, sort of feeling that pressure in the middle?
It's honestly been a little bit hard. It's always something that I've known that I've had to do. Like, I've played the six like pretty much my whole life. And like even last year, like my dad is always telling me like, you need to be more active, and I'm like, I know, but I've always been kind of scared of like making mistakes and like losing the ball or something. Right. But I do feel like this year it's kind of something I've like gotten over, like confidence with like even just like playing more, like I know, and like having last season like behind me, like I have a lot more confidence to know that like I can check to this ball and receive it and like make a play. And so I'd say it has to do with like a lot of confidence and just like trusting yourself and what you can do.
Yeah, and I'm super curious how these conversations go when you're a player. You're thinking about, like, even you admitting like it can be like scary to jump into this level and be like, all right, game on. I guess I'm like playing in the midfield. as a freshman, I'm really curious when you were getting recruited and that first time you talked to Sheila. First of all, when was that? How long ago was that? But then just what was that conversation like? Sort of how did she speak about the team, and what about it made you think, oh yeah, I want to go do this like really bizarre like thing of transitioning a team in a way that's never been done?
Yeah, so I first to Sheila, I think it was probably right at the start of COVID. So it was like my junior year. And so our assistant coach, Vicky Vargas, was my coach at Shattuck growing up too. So I've always like kind of known about St. Thomas. And so Vicky was like, hey, Sheila's seen you play a lot. Like she likes you. And then it was kind of like the scary COVID times. And I was like, I didn't know if I wanted to stay close to home or what, but I was like, I might as well email Sheila. And then I talked to Sheila, really enjoyed our conversation. Like she talked so highly of the team and like overall like our team chemistry, which like every coach is going to say that, of course, but like Sheila really convinced me. And like now that I'm here, like it couldn't be further from the truth that like team chemistry is like really what drives our program and like contributes to our success. But yeah, I was really excited about being a part of the transition. My dad was on the first Division I team at Mankato playing hockey. So it's kind of like an ironic full circle moment where he was on the first D1 team and now I was on the first D1 team. So kind of had him in my ear, like telling me tips and tricks to what you got to do. But it was something I was really excited about and I thought it was like a cool opportunity. So I'm really happy that I ended up here and I'm a part of it.
Nice.
That's an amazing experience to have.
Yeah.
So you've played like 13 games in the last year, and you touched on this topic a little bit earlier. But this year has been like you've been an absolute anchor in the midfield. Like, talk about how different it feels just about like having like 1 year already under your belt.
Yeah, I think like I got to watch a lot last year and like learn a lot from especially the senior class, and being able to like go into a game and almost as like, I don't want to say like the backup, but like you're going in there like to give someone else a rest and like also bring like what you can to the field. And
Right.
So last year was kind of like not as much pressure. Like as a freshman, like there's not really as much expectations on you. You just have to like go out there and prove yourself. And so coming into this season, I was a little bit like, I don't really have that like no pressure anymore. Like I have expectations for myself. Like my coaches have expectations for me. But I think like having that season of like just being able to like go play and like learn has really like helped me this year to be able to like go out and do my best.
Yeah. Well, I'm really curious too. Everyone shows up at camp. Like it's like literally like, all right, let's see what the hell happens. Like everyone is just sort of, you show up that first year and it's just sort of truly anything could be like any one of us could be starters. We have no idea like which of us will come in and play. We have no idea who will come off the bench. And this year, just like talk about sort of that difference of sort of literally all possible outcomes to now you have this sort of at least some expectation of, okay, we won whatever 4 games or whatever it was last year. We know we can be better. We know we will be better. But talk about just sort of that narrowing of like the uncertainty factor of, oh, now we actually kind of know what we are.
Yeah, I mean, I think the spring last year was like huge in like developing our team because, I mean, a big group of our team from the spring last year we have this year.
Right.
And so especially like the midfield, like Soph and Ellie and I, like we were the only midfielders last spring. So we got like lots of reps together and we kind of were like, all right, we have to get this down. Like we have to be coming in ready to go. And so I think the spring season played a big role in like as far as like narrowing down and like being ready for this year. And then this year in preseason, we talked a lot about last season, like what went well, what we could do better, and really have like focused on specific goals that we want to improve on. And so far we've been hitting our goals and like doing really well. So I'm excited for conference to start and to keep hitting those goals.
I think Issa and I went, to like the first day of training camp and when you all were reporting, and I think I like almost like burst out laughing. And I said to Issa the minute you all started the first, like, I guess you're not supposed to say drill anymore. Am I getting it? Like activity you all did?
Okay.
The first thing you all did was like players on each side, 2 players in the middle, and you had to like hold like you were like arm barring a defender like on their back. And hold a defender and turn and pass. Like literally the first thing you all did was like like take that pressure, be willing to be physical,
Yep.
like move the ball. And it was like the most Sheila thing ever. Like when I saw the activity, I'm like, well, this isn't the very first thing that they do is like literally like a hold a defender on your back thing. And it was just like
yeah, and we're totally like, even today we did stuff just like that. We did like no ball, just pushing against someone, like being strong and physical. Like that's a big part of it.
I think there's probably like a blurry line where people think when I talk about that physicality, I'm like teasing or like talking trash or something. The truth is, you all have the fewest yellow cards in the whole Summit League right now. Like do we? Like you all just play gritty, like you play hard, but it's not trash soccer. It's just there's a lot of physicality, and I think
I didn't know that.
Teams that can live up to that physicality level, but aren't just like chopping legs the whole time, like being physical can be great. Like that can be super entertaining. Like the chopping down and the trash soccer isn't fun, but like you all are fully just, using your frame, like using your shoulder, whatever. Yeah. I mean, did that style of play sort of attract you? Have you always played with like a little bit of physicality?
I mean, I've always been a physical player. I don't know if I've ever really thought about it too much. I guess like I think it is different, like coming from like club and high school soccer though to like Division I. It's like it is like a completely different game as far as physicality and stuff. Right. Like I have a younger sister who plays soccer too, and I'm like, you got to be ready, like to be strong. Like she's going to Kansas State, and so I'm like, those Big 12 center backs like aren't gonna let you just receive the ball.
Big 12 is nuts, man. Big 12 is nuts. All right, I'll take a quick break just to let folks know this show is brought to you by Pentz Homes. Whether you're buying or selling or looking to do some projects in your home, Nate and Lydia can help you find what you need. Need financing for a basement remodel, looking to add a second bath or even a workspace now that you're working from home. Pentz Homes and their preferred lender, Angie Shear with Luminant Financing, can help find the right financing tool for you. Go to pentzhomes.com and learn more, or find them on social media at Pentz Homes. And I think Angie Shear's team also owns the URL gaymortgage.com. So if folks are looking for like a queer-friendly financer, ball out with Angie Shear for sure. And lastly, Camryn, we saved the most important thing for last. This is easily the most important thing. We saw on the team account recently, there's a question of who would die first in a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Ariana Sanchez, or Chez as folks call her, I think said you would die first. And we need to dive all the way into this. So we need to, like, first of all, why is she throwing shade? Like, so what's the deal? But also, what would your game, like, pitch yourself? Like, what would your game plan be? What's your mindset? What are your skills? Let's go.
Okay, well, so Chez is actually my roommate. So I said her too, but she said me because I'm sure you guys have like watched our games. I kind of falling a lot. So she said she was thinking that I would fall and that's how the zombies would catch me. But that would not be my game plan. I know I'm not the fastest girl out there. I wouldn't be running from the zombies. I think I would like figure out some place to hide out and stay inside, outsmart the zombies would probably be my plan.
Right. This was and Mark talks about this even more than I do. Teams putting out this content is like, such a fun way for fans to have like a casual way to like learn more about the team, even see a little bit of the personality. Now we know, you two roommates are just dogging each other, which is the best.
Yeah, we just did another question after practice today. It was like, what two people would you want to try to survive with on a deserted island? So you guys can look out for that.
You're not gonna give us a sneak peek?
Oh, I can tell you guys who I said. I said my two roommates, Soph and Chez. So
we go from that contentious moment, and then you just bring it back. This moment of healing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I figure we might as well have a good time if we're gonna be out on a deserted island.
Isa, what would your zombie apocalypse strategy be? Let's go.
Oh God. First, I'm a collector of things, so I just go out and I'd like just scramble to find everything and anything possible.
Okay. Hoarding is your strategy.
Yes, that is absolutely my strategy because you know what? Might as well cave myself in and I don't know, maybe light the zombies on fire whenever I feel like it. Make little.
You'll notice I made you guys answer that question. I don't have an answer for that, but that's the magic of me hosting. I don't have to answer that question. Camryn, Camryn, you've been balling out during non-conference play. Can't wait to see you in the Summit League, battling with those tough midfielders. You're going to be patrolling them for the Tomcats. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
All right, last but not least, we are a full St. Paul crew now for St. Paul native and backline stalwart Audrey Vidmar. Audrey, thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Okay, so the team plays like fairly aggressively, especially for like a new squad. That puts a lot of pressure on you all as like defenders to be prepared for like a counter and to like absorb that pressure. But you haven't really given up a lot of goals. Can you like talk about your strategy a little bit?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great question. I think something that the coaches have really kind of harped on us this year is, as you said, like our forwards press pretty high and we like to be really aggressive up top. And I think as a back line, we've really focused on, as the forwards are pushing, getting behind them and really pushing up as a team together. I think especially shifting, we've talked a lot about, because if one person doesn't shift, then, you kind of screw over everyone. And so I think those have been like really important things. I think, like, for example, the Marquette game, they were playing a lot more direct, and we did get caught kind of on our heels a few times with very direct, like over the top balls. And so I think just learning from that to drop and then pinch behind has just been like points to focus on for us.
Yeah, that idea of like, if a team is going to play a high line with their forwards, then midfields have to go, defense has to go. Like, it really requires just like a ton of discipline. I mean, just like the mental discipline. You get like actually tired having to focus like that throughout the game. Have you had to play like a high line like that before? Was that something new for you with this program?
Yeah, I think, thinking back to like Drake and even club, I think at Drake we didn't play as high of a line, and so It was more kind of sit back and like wait for them to just give it up. And so I think coming to St. Thomas, it was a little different to realize, okay, like our forwards are going, tell the midfield to go, and then tell yourself to just keep running, because you need to be there, or else there's going to be kind of those like awkward gaps between like forward and mids and like the defenders and midfield. And so it was, I'd say, different than previous like club teams and my previous college, but it's been fun kind of learning a new style of play, and I think we've adjusted to it well.
Yeah, it's crazy the amount of pressure it puts on like Camryn has to follow you, and then you have to follow Camryn, and it's just like the obsessive sort of like being on a string. It's crazy. And you mentioned you started your college career at Drake, so down in Iowa. You came in as a transfer. You played major minutes last year. You had already been through, being through some D1 soccer before. A lot of the recruits were highly rated, highly touted, but they're still sort of brand new to the D1 level or brand new to college soccer in general. So how, you'd been through a D1 experience, but then this is just so different from that. Talk about sort of, did it feel, was there some freedom in thinking like, well, at the very least, like, we're brand new, so will people expect anything from us? Or compared to like your mindset when you went to Drake and you remember feeling the pressure of that. Talk about sort of the differences of those two experiences.
Yeah, so I think going to Drake, it was at a time when Drake was doing really well in the Missouri Valley. And so I think, going there as a freshman and getting minutes as a freshman, I did feel like a lot of pressure just to, help the team stay kind of at that level. I think coming to St. Thomas, obviously we are the underdogs for, most of the teams we play, but I think that's something I love, and it's like a position I love to be in because no one's expecting anything of you. I think like personally, I did feel like a lot of pressure just because I was a transfer, was coming from a Division I school, and I wanted to be kind of like that leader and be able to like bring my voice and experience to the team. But just like going back, I think no one's really expecting anything of us, and like to be able to prove people wrong, it's just been really fun.
That's genuinely like a really good feeling to like be the underdog and like go in and then prove everyone wrong. But you spoke about a little bit how you were like a transfer student, right? So like when you went into the portal, like what were some of like the top line things that you were hoping like out of your no school,
Yeah. So when I was at Drake, my freshman year, the pandemic hit, and that was really when I realized I think I wanted to be closer to home. I came back obviously during quarantine, and I was like, oh, really nice being home. And I went back for my fall semester, like during COVID, at Drake, and I was coming home, a lot. So it was really, it really came down to I wanted to be back in Minnesota and closer to home. And so I entered the portal, I think it was spring 2021, and I was at home taking classes online. And, I'm St. Paul born and raised. And so I knew of St. Thomas. And I kind of put all my eggs in one basket. I looked around a little, but I was like, I really, really want to go to St. Thomas. And so everything just kind of worked out.
Had you, I guess the timing would have been pretty early, like by the time you were looking at schools way back when, obviously St. Thomas was still D3, probably hadn't had any murmurs, maybe not of D1 yet, I can't remember. Certainly not when you were getting recruited, because you got recruited like 10 years ago. But talk a little bit about sort of what were those conversations like, when you finally were talking to Sheila, or when you were even talking to other players that you knew who were going there, since you're a Minnesota kid, I'm sure you knew of other, players who had already committed. What was the selling point to go to St. Thomas for you? And sort of, you said you really wanted to go there, but what were some of those things that, the program sort of sold you on?
Yeah. So I think, I just remember my first conversation with Sheila. She talked like so highly of like team chemistry, and that was kind of the one thing she really focused on, especially when recruiting players. And I, like you said, like I'm a Minnesota kid, there's a lot of Minnesota girls on the team. I had known a few girls, especially like in the class above me, who are on St. Thomas, and I chatted a ton with them before I committed, and made like really good connections with them. And so I think like Sheila completely sold me on the team chemistry thing. And when I came here, like that's exactly what it was. All the girls were nothing but like welcoming to me, and to be a transfer student and to feel like so much welcomeness coming in, just made everything.
I'm curious too, what were some of the, you set up these expectations in your head. You have this idea of like, okay, this is how Sheila talked about the program, first year D1, so I expect ABC. What were some of the things, and you'd already been at a program before, what were some of the things that were sort of a surprise, or like you maybe didn't expect about sort of being in a new team or playing in a new conference or any of that stuff?
Yeah, well, I know we mentioned this, but I think the thing that really surprised me was kind of how aggressive we are pushing up, and our forwards, because that, I know like I'm obviously a defender, it doesn't affect me like a ton, but it does in the sense of if I don't step up, then I'm kind of screwing over like the whole team. And so I think that was one thing, especially last year when we were really trying to put a lot of new players together and, combine the existing team already with like our big freshman class. It was really like integrating all the players, seeing where like everyone's going to go, and then also kind of learning how the coaches and Sheila want to play in like their style of play. So I think it was just kind of like a lot of moving parts and figuring those out.
Cool. All right. Well, you did mention that you're from St. Paul. I did joke with Sheila very early on in the show. The first time I noticed the announcer at the games mentioning like, get ready for soccer in the capital city or whatever it is, the capital city vibes was like the first time I heard it, I thought maybe he was just like giving it a try. And then I saw it in like 10 different tweets, and then I've seen it at every game, and then like other sports are posting about it. So it's very clear that St. Thomas is trying to like own we're the St. Paul school, which I actually think is pretty cool. Issa's born and bred St. Paul. She has a lot more cred than me in this city. I've only lived here for like a decade. She has multiple years on top of that. And so we are going to go ahead and pick your brain on some St. Paul things, because obviously you went to De La Salle, so you know stuff across the river too. Like, the whole metro. But we need to give this audience some hardcore St. Paul vibes right now. We're going to narrow all the way in. So talk a little bit about what are some favorite restaurants of yours. Let's hype some stuff up. Let's spread the word.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Putting me on the spot. Let's see. I think this is just like a classic and obvious one. Cafe Latte is probably one of my favorites. especially if you like cake, like 100% recommend that. I think some of these might be chains, and
That's okay.
correct me if I'm wrong, but some of my other favorites are like Brasa, which is on Grand,
Brass is good.
Coconut Thai. If you're looking for more like Indian, Nepalese, it's Everest Grand is really
Oof.
good.
Everest is, I used to live 2 blocks from Everest, and I would walk from like where I would park my bike, walk home, and it's like you just have to smell that garlic naan. Like they're
Yep.
just gonna make me smell that all day.
Yep. No, you just know you have to go there then. So yeah, I'll keep thinking. But those are probably like my top favorites.
Issa, drop some in here. Let's show some love.
Well, I think this might be just like because of like my ethnic background, but Boca Chica and Buca de Beppo. Those are some of my favorites. But also like Audrey said, cafe latte is amazing. I love cafe latte. But there's also this Vietnamese place that me and my parents go to a lot. I can't remember the name of it right now, but
where is it?
You know, I just give them the order and my dad goes to pick it up. I don't know where it is. I think I've maybe been there once. I think it's on University.
Oh, maybe Non Bistro or something. Who knows?
Is it not? Yeah, I was gonna say too.
It's in Midway. I ride hard for Faux Pastor. I ride hard for Master Noodle, which is at the Hamlin station. They're both complete killers. They're absolutely the best. I'm right by Groundswell. We'll call it that. Actually, we'll use that excuse. Audrey, I'm sure you have a lot of different study strategies. Let's pretend one of them is hitting up a coffee shop. Talk about, do you have any favorite coffee spots in the capital city?
Yeah, well, this is probably very biased just because I literally drive by it like every day. Quixotic in Highland.
Oh.
That's like one of my favorites. The vibes there are just amazing, especially for studying.
Well, wait a second. Describe these vibes. Give us a vibe check.
It's just very calming, like lots just like a I'd say typical coffee shop, you know. I'd say also Spy House, which I know is like also a chain. There's some in Minneapolis, but there's one in St. Paul, like really close to St. Thomas too.
Yeah.
I'd say those are probably my 2 main ones that I go to just because they're close.
Nice. And I will say I mentioned De La Salle earlier. You have experience in both cities. We try not to be a militant St. Paul podcast, but we can show our bias today. If people maybe, have only gone to like a random Twins game or something, or only ever go to Minneapolis, you're basically working for the St. Paul Visitors Bureau right now. Describe some things. You mentioned you want to be back home. You loved being back home. Talk about sort of what you love about St. Paul, or what things you were sort of missing being, all the way down in Des Moines.
All the way down, yeah. Honestly, it was a big one was the lakes, which I know were the land of whatever 10,000 lakes. Like being in Iowa, you're kind of like, wow, there's nothing around here. And I think actually I did take for granted the Twin Cities in general. Like with Minneapolis, it's like huge compared to Des Moines, Iowa. And that just there's so many things to do. Like you can get up, you can like go on a walk around the lake, you can go to like a new coffee shop somewhere, you can go play like mini golf. Like there's so many different things that so I maybe like the right word is I felt a little isolated down there, but just like coming back and like being in a place where like things were very familiar. Yeah, I
went to college in Morris, Minnesota. Go Cougars. Okay. And I'm very proud of it. But the vibes out there, it was a town of 5,000 people, and I grew up in a town of 1,000. But it that town was a lake town that always had events and crap going on, and there were bars and restaurants. And so I completely get the whole thing of like Des Moines actually isn't that tiny, but the whole difference of sort of does it feel like there's stuff going on or not? Just sort of. It's like out of your control. It's like, does it feel like there's stuff I can go do? And if not, you start to be like, oh man, I miss going to wherever.
Right.
Nice. Issa, any other questions we should lob at Audrey?
What is like your like? Okay, so I have like personal like comfort spots whenever I go anywhere. So like, what is some like little like what's this like little like unknown like place that like you really like to go to or like have like been to that not a lot of people from like out of state would know about?
Oh, that's a really good question. Yeah, I actually during the pandemic, like when we couldn't like really see anyone, me and my friends would like go to random parks and just like sit on blankets and talk to each other. And it's called like I want to say it's called like Eagle Overlook. It's in Summit Hill. But they like I just found out they host like a ton of like outdoor like yoga classes or stuff like that, or you can just go there and like read, and it's like super nice and calming, and it's like right by like pretty close to the Capitol, pretty close to like food places.
Is that the one? That's the park right at like the Ramsey Hill and Summit, where like
Yes.
Summit turns. Yeah.
Yes, it's I just say it's like really fun, and I haven't been there, and so yeah.
And Audrey, did I catch you earlier referencing? Are you a Highland person? Do you live in Highland?
Yes, I am Highland Village.
Tell you what, we will go down there and we will do a feature on Equal Time, and we're gonna like paddleboard the Highland Bridge water feature.
Okay, sounds great.
Are there any other St. Paul natives on the squad?
I'm the only one.
All right, you, Issa, and I are gonna go paddleboard the water feature.
Sounds great.
I love it. We got so granular and no one gives a shit what we just talked about, and I love it so much.
And we gave lots of great options, restaurants.
We talked about like very in-depth pressing tactics too. We got plenty of good soccer, and we talked about spacing between the lines. We got nerdy as hell about soccer. All right, well, this is the close of our epic St. Thomas conference play preview show. You've all been playing super aggressive, battling every single game in non-conference play. Now the Summit League has come around again. Audrey Vidmar, star transfer defender for the Tomcats. Alongside Issa, I'm Matt. Thanks so much for being here.